All right. Good afternoon to all of our Institute for Social and Cultural viewers. My name is April Martinez, and I am the Living Heritage Officer here at ISCR Niche. And joining me on this wonderful live stream is Andy Chuk, and he is the representative of To'one Masewalon, which is a non-political organization in the North. And of course, Andy Chuk also identifies as Yucatec. And he is joining me on this live to talk about a very a tradition, a ceremony, a yearly ritual that most Belizeans are associated with, but perhaps you might not know the foundations or that historical foundation of this tradition. I'm talking about the Janal Pixan. And I think a lot of us associate it with Dia de los Muertos, the dead. We also sometimes confuse it with finados. And so Andy is here to give us a little bit of history on the subject matter. So Andy, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being with me this afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. So today I will be talking of this tradition called Janal Pixan or Janal Pixan, which is one of the traditions celebrated here in Belize. To understand the tradition, it's very important for us to understand the meaning of the word, right? The word comes from Janal, meaning food, and Pixan, meaning soul, and Pixan meaning soul. So Janal Pixan means food for the souls. Now, who are the people that celebrate this tradition here in Belize? The people who celebrate it are the Yucatec Maya people, which are people that are found in Corozal, Orange Walk, and the Cayo district. And you might also hear that people might call us Mayero or also Masewal, which these two terms are also speaking of the Yucatec Maya, right? And we must add also that there are people that identify themselves as mestizo, and they also celebrate Janal Pixan. Many times we tend to forget that mestizo people are people of indigenous descent also, especially those in the north. They are people of Yucatec Maya descent. So if you come to the north, you will realize that there are people that identify as mestizo and people in the north that identify as Maya Yucatec. And both of us use the traditional ipil, etc., right? But to understand Janal Pixan, we need to understand the concept of death among the Maya, right? Because for the Maya, death is not the end. Death is actually a transformation of the body and the soul, where the body returns to Mother Earth and the soul goes to the spiritual world, right? So to give an example, in one of our secret books, the books of Chilam Balam of Chumayel, it tells us that on 12 Ik, the breath of life was created, and it was called Ik because it had no death in it. It also tells us that Ik was put into bodies, and on 3 Kimi is when death was created. So here we can understand that the Maya saw this death as a physical one, but not a spiritual one that separated the body from the soul permanently, right? So in this material world, is one and the spiritual world is another, and death connected us with the spiritual world. Now, it's important for us to know that death is personified in different cultures around the world, right? And to give an example, the Grim Reaper is a personification of death in Europe. In Christianity and Islam, we have the angel of death called Azrael, and we also have La Santa Muerte. These personifications actually represent death itself, you know. These entities come and get the soul and take it to the spiritual world. In Maya, it is the same idea. We have Yum Kimi, right? Yum Kimi translated means father, death, and the word Yum, father, and Kimi meaning death, right? Yum Kimi is the Yum seal of death and ruler of Mitnal. Now, Mitnal is the spiritual world. It's what we would know as the underworld, and it's divided into 9 levels, each level having a lord of death known as Bolon Tiku. right? And these lords of death are actually same manifestations of Yom Kippur. They represent the different kinds of death. They represent different phases that the body endure while being dead. To give an example, one of the lords of death is called Kisin. Kisin means the flatulent one, the stinky one, representing when the body is dead, it releases smell. And we have the famous Hapuch. Hapuch means ha from Lord, and puch meaning squash one, aplastado. So it's a way of dying. So each of these lords actually represent a way of dying or one of the phases that the body endures while being dead, right? And I must clarify that the lords of death, Bolontiku, are not demons, right? This idea came with Christianity, but they are linked to the cycle of life, right? And they are even part of the process of creation. According to the books of Chilambalam, it tells us that Oslahuntiku and Bolontiku created the world and life. So they are linked to life, right? Regeneration, a new beginning. Now,
Then why do a lot of the times, and this is just to clarify and to kind of add a little bit more to your context, that we have this concept of Maya spirituality separated from Catholicism, or I guess intertwined with Christianity, if you will, because a lot of the times when we see these altars, you're going to see the saints or crucifix, or you know, some emblem of a cross and so forth on these altars. And of course you have certain prayers that are being told as well during this time of the year. So can you speak a little bit more about how these religious concepts merge together when we are celebrating Janal Pixan?
Well, we need to be conscious of our history, right? When Christianity was brought here, according to the Maya Yucatec, Christianity reached here. That's based on our secret books in 1519 is when Christianity started, right? And we understand that there was a conversion, a brutal conversion, right? And this is the cruel reality of our history, is that many Mayas were forced to convert to Catholicism, to Christianity, but the Mayas found ways on how they can continue their tradition, right? And also, a lot of the Catholic priests, they found symbols, ideas that are similar in Christianity, that are similar in the Maya spirituality. For example, the creator god, Jehovah, in Maya, the creator god is Itzamna, right? Ideas like this. Now, the idea of celebrating Janal Pixan started by seeing that the Maya, after death, they continue to honor their ancestors, right? So in a way of conversion, the missionaries, you know, they show the Maya, we have this also similar to yours, with the idea of converting them. But what really happened was that the Maya started to introduce their ideas into this faith, this tradition as Janal Pixan or All Souls Day or Dia de Muertos, right? Other indigenous groups started to do the same, starting to find new ways on how they can continue to preserve their spirituality, their identity, forming on what we see up to this day, right? So I'll be speaking a little on the syncretism in a while. I was in the Yumkimi, right? And where Yumkimi is represented as a skull, and it's always accompanied by a peck and a such. Such is a beautiful white bird known in Spanish as lechuza, in English is barn owl, and peck is a dog. And this tradition, you can still see it in the Maya, right? Where you hear that if the dog holds a certain way or the such sings a certain way, it is announcing death, announcing that somebody will die close to that place. Now, I have to clarify that these animals are not of bad luck, they're simply messengers. And here we can see that the Maya continue to interpret Mother Nature with messages so they can predict certain events. So Yumkimi is simply the death, you know, it's simply the separation of the body and the soul permanently, right? Now, Janal Pixan, also the Dia de Muertos, they have the same idea, which is to honor our ancestors, our heroes, our family members that are not with us physically, right? When do Hanal Pishan starts? Hanal Pishan starts on the 31st, but some people started in the first. And we need to know that the Yucatec Maya nation is not exclusively to believe. Of course, here we have Orange Rock, Cayo, and Corozal, and even between us, there are differences. But you can also find it in the state of Quintana Roo, Yucatan, and also Campeche. Some people started the 31st. It starts with Uhanal Pal, which is for the children, and then the second day is Uhanal Nukuch Winikob, which is for the adults. But, and this is what differentiated of the others, right? It's not only celebrated for 2 days, but for 8 days or the entire month of November. And to differentiate it, for example, All Souls Day, done by the Roman Catholic Church, it starts with All Saints Day, the first, dedicated to the saints, right? To those saints, known or unknown. The second day is for All Souls Day, for the dead. What do the church do? The church do a mass done by the priest. And this is something that also we need to focus on, is that if you ask a nun, if you ask a priest, they do not put food in the table. They simply do a prayer. So we need to clarify that the church itself is one, but then we have the people that go to the church. And people that go to the church, for example, the Maya, they preserve a lot of their Maya identity. And this is where we include putting food on the table, because people will say, oh, but my mama is Roman Catholic and she puts food in the table. But that is not part of the Catholic Church itself, but it's part of the people that go there who have continued in some way or another to preserve their identity, right? An important part of the church, of the tradition itself is the altars, right? Traditionally, altars were done of all natural things. The Maya used to go to the bush, get sticks, get beans, all what is needed, and they used to do an altar. These altars were done with no nails, with no string, everything naturally. There are some people that they'll create an altar, improvise one, either with a table or a little shelf. They would put a table mat. And there are some families that they already have a permanent altar at home, right? And then we have the solo. The solo is an altar that is normally done outside of the house or at the yard, at a corner, and this is dedicated to those dead, those souls that have nobody to pray for them, nobody that are giving them offerings. You know, maybe the family have change of religion or they don't believe in these things, so a solo is put on. But it doesn't matter if it's an elaborated altar, a small little altar. What is important is the idea, right? Now, one of the important things in the table is the food, right? Hanal. And this is from where this tradition gets its name. Traditionally, people used to do sa atole, tamales. Some people used to do nohochwa or some big tamales cooked underground. But today, people do put on the table whatever the soul when he was alive used to like. You know, some people you will see Coke, you will see beer, you will see different things. And there's some people, traditionally people used to give offerings of what they used to grow in the milpa. But today we live in a modern world that's sometimes difficult to do this. So people might go and just buy food, just put it on the table, and that's it, you know. And now putting it on the table have another little ritual, that is praying, right? Now, what I've observed is that there are some people that only put a table and they don't pray. They simply put it, right? Now, there are others that they would do a little prayer in Maya, that they would put an offering. And then we have those that would do rosaries. And here we can see again the influence of Christianity and Maya together, where they would do a rosary or a prayer. But when the rosary is done, all the food is shared. We don't throw anything, right? Because food is something holy. And when it is done, we share it among ourselves. So here we can see that different people have different ways of doing the same tradition, right? Some might just do a Maya prayer, others will do a rosary, and others would simply put the food. Candles are very important. Candles are put to illuminate the altar so that the soul could know where it should go. But we must also be aware that some people put incense, other people will put copal. Copal is used for cleaning, right? Another thing that is very important on the altar is religious symbols, right? And this is where we'll see that the tradition may vary between families, and we must have in mind that the Yucatec Maya are people that have become a part of the modern world also, right? So some people might take these beliefs like it really happens, others would take it more like a symbolism, right? But religious symbols are very important. There are people that would put nothing on it, right? There are others that would put the Maya cross, which is what they have back here. This you can find it especially with the Yucatec Mayas, the descent of the Cruz of Maya, the Mayas that came from Nuca Santa Cruz. They brought this concept of a green cross dressed in traditional Maya attire. Here we can see two different versions, a more Christian looking one and one that looks more like a tree, right? For the Maya, this is
And green. Why the color green?
Green is because green represents life, but also represents the Yashche, which is the tree of life, which is the Seiba. And the whole Seiba represents a whole Maya cosmology, being the roots being Midnal, the underground, and then having Kab is the material world, and the branches being Kan, which is the heaven. All this concept is represented in these crosses, and these are put on the middle or right in the middle of the altar. So the altar itself represents the whole Maya cosmology, right? But also we have people that are Maya Catholics, right? That are Mayas that practice Roman Catholicism. They go to church, they baptize, but they continue preserving elements, beliefs, traditions of the Maya culture. And they would include Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ, and stuff like that. For those that don't know, Jesus Christ in Maya is known as Kichkelem Yum, and Virgin Mary is known as Kichpan Kolel, which means beautiful lady and handsome man, right? That's the word that the Mayas use for this, right? And we must know that even though most of the Mayas today are Christianized and they practice Maya Catholicism, there are many Mayas that are not Christian still, especially among the Yucatec Maya. And there is a little movement where people don't identify with Christianity. They prefer practicing their traditions, right? Now, there are certain beliefs during this time. One of them is that the babies, they would put a little black a ribbon or a little black string, and this is done especially when Bish is reaching, that is believed that his souls will return to the spiritual world. And since a baby is an innocent soul, and we know that there are sadly little babies that have transcended to the spiritual world, when they're going back, they would not take this baby with them, right? This is one of the traditions. If a person dies close to Janal Pixan, Janal Pixan is not done. It is done until the next year, because this spirit is transcending to the spiritual world. We don't want to interrupt this flow, right? That he's going to the spiritual world, and then do an offering for make that person come back. For that reason, in the Maya tradition and also between the Mayan Catholic faith, right, it's believed that there are souls that might not transcend to the spiritual world. They might end up at the place that they die, and that's why some do prayers, they do novenas, so that soul transcend, right? And then we go with Bish, right? Bish in Maya means octavo. Now, Bish is a tradition that I have noticed that, for example, among the Mayas in Orinjuak, right, which majority of them, they are from Ikariche Maya, they don't celebrate Bish anymore, right? And then on the Cayo side, I have noticed that they don't do Bish anymore. The only village that I have information of doing Bish is Bully Tree Falls in the Cayo district, that they did Bish at least the 80s and 90s, right? Now, what is Bish? Bish is a tradition that is believed that is the time that the soul return to the spiritual world, right? Now, for Bish, the Maya do prayers again, they do more food, they do offering, they do a lot of food. Now, the place where you can find Bish being celebrated a lot is from northern Orange Walk to Corozal, right? Which like San Pablo, the village that I live, San Narciso, Santa Clara, Shaibe, Pachacan, these villages continue celebrating Bish. And what they do is that they put candles in front of the house. They take candles to the cemetery. They put candles in front of their houses. This is to guide the ik, the pishan, the soul, back to the spiritual world, right? Apart from this, they do a lot of food. There are villages like, for example, Chaibe. They do a lot of tamale, right? A lot of tamales cooked underground, right? They're cooked in pib, and they do, some families do from 100, and some families might do even 400 tamales. When they do prayers, they share tamales to everybody. It cannot be denied. So it is like a sort of a party, right? It's a time of remembering our ancestors. All the candles that have not been burned in the altar, they are taken to the tombs, and there are families that go there. They would clean the tomb, paint it. There are some that would do prayers right there in the tomb. So it's a moment that the Maya take into reconnecting with their ancestors, remembering jokes, things, or events that they have lived. Now we must see that Bish is a Maya tradition. Like I said, it's mostly celebrated in the Corozal area where Yucatec Mayas descend from, Tusug Maya. But this tradition is not done for Dia de Muertos, and it's not done for All Souls Day, right? Some people will do it the 8th, other people will do it in any time of the month of November, some even at the end, right? Remembering that we live in a modern world where time is something that has us enslaved many times, you know, like that we work hard. So whenever the individual have an opportunity, he or she take these candles to the tomb, right? Now, All Souls Day, as I explained, it has its roots in Christianity, right? So All Saints Day is the first day, like I explained, for the saints. The second day is All Souls Day for the dead. And then this is where the only thing that we have in common with Hannah. So if your mom is Roman Catholic and she used to put food, this is definitely because of her Maya belief, right? Not the church. The church itself do not preach, do not tell people to do this. This is from the Maya side. Now we have the famous Dia de Muertos, right? Especially because we have seen movies like Coco, movies like The Book of Life. Now, Dia de Muertos have become very popular, but it's a tradition that has the same idea, but it's different, you know. Dia de Muertos is different because while Janal Pixan is rooted in the Maya culture and has some Roman Catholic influence, All Souls Day is rooted in the Christian religion. The Dia de Muertos is actually a mix of Spanish and different indigenous groups. So it doesn't really have like a root, right? And this is where you will find the sugar skulls. This is where you will see La Catrina. This is where you will hear of Pan de Muerto. This is where you will see the marigold flowers. This is where you will see all these things, right? And if you guys have seen these movies express a very good idea of how indigenous people look at death, but at the same time mixing a lot of concepts that are not really correct, right? And to give you an example, there I was speaking of the Yucatec Maya spiritual world as Mitnag. I know many people will say, what happened with Xibalba, right? Well, Xibalba is also, but that's the name in Quechua, and you can find that among the holy book of the Quechua people, called the Popol Vuh, the book of the community, right? Now, I have seen different altars. I have seen here in Belize, right? Schools doing altars. I have seen House of Culture doing altars. I have seen people doing competition in altars. And many times you will see a bunch of things together. You will see Dia de Muertos. You will see Janal Pixan. You will see All Souls Day, everything together, no? And this could happen due to many reasons. Maybe some people don't really know, or maybe They know, but they like certain elements of of these traditions. I know, especially if you celebrate Hanal Pishan and then you see people having La Catrina. Oh, that looks cool, right? And we might have seen El Paseo de las Animas, right, where people paint their faces black and they put black with white, right? This tradition started in by a movie of James Bond. This was not part even of Day of the Dead. So people see that, people say, this looks cool. They adopted it from Mexico. It went to USA. Then people in the state of Yucatan, because I have not seen this in Campeche nor in Quintana Roo, saw it and I say, this looks cool. And now you see people using their traditional Maya clothing with their face paint. Some people call it los panditas, meaning the pandas, because they look black and white, marking it, right? But here we can see that culture is not something static. It's not something that will stay the same. People will find new ways of expressing themselves. People will find things that they like, including it, excluding things. So culture is evolution, but the idea continues to be the same. That is honoring our dead, honoring our ancestors.
Is it the same concept that we don't take away the food once we put it on the altar? We have to leave it there for the entire 3 days.
Well, and here I will say again that things vary among people, right? I've seen that some people put the food and they don't touch it, they leave it overnight. I see some people that simply put the food and they make a little rosario or a prayer, but when the prayer is done, that could take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. The food is shared, right? So we can see that there are different ideas, even among the Yucatec Maya people. You would see some people doing things that are a little different, but the idea is the same. But food is not thrown away, right? I have seen many people that believe that the Mayas or the people that do this tradition, they do food and they just throw it away. So people say this food should be given to the poor, but actually, this food is not thrown away. It is shared, right? And it is shared among the people that are there, or the person who do the prayer is the one that actually eats it, right? Because sometimes when we're giving food offering, sometimes it's a whole bunch of people. Sometimes you're alone. You do the prayer yourself. You after a while you eat it yourself. And we need to understand that for the Maya, the dead do not eat the food. The souls do not eat the food. The food is material. What they feed on is on the essence of it, the idea of it, right? Because there are people who will say, oh, but the dead doesn't eat food. That's true. Dead does not eat food. The idea, the essence of offering them something, remembering them is what this tradition is actually based on, right? Especially with,
Which is also a misconception that we have. But another thing that I think is important to point out is that Uhanal Pishan does not require us to visit a cemetery, or it doesn't require us to quote unquote dine with the dead in the cemetery. That is also something that's very different from Dia de los Muertos, right?
Yeah, that's completely different. If you go, for example, at Chetumal, Quintana Roo, right, here close to the border, you will see that people go to the tomb, they eat there, they party there. But now you need to understand that Chetumal is a urban place where people of different cultures are now living to, not only Maya people, right? But if you go to the communities, right, to the villages, people don't actually eat there, right? Well, there might be some, right? Some people might take their little drink, sit down, and even speak with the tomb, trying to remember things, but it's not required. Some people might only go there and put their candle. And if you travel, for example, for Bish at villages like Shaibe, like Pachacan, you will see that the cemetery looks beautiful and lighted. It's dark, but you can see all those beautiful candles, which is like a spectacle that you don't see often, right? And you will see sometimes people going there at night, family members. So Uhanal Pishan is not only for the dead, it's it's also for the living. It's a moment that we share together, from doing the altar, because when an altar is being done, many times it's a family thing, you know. We are putting things together, we are speaking, we are some people even put pictures. We look at a picture, we might remember, you know, oh, this is your uncle, this is your grandfather, I remember he told me this. So it's a moment of not only the death, but for the family, you know, being together, sharing, remembering things, remembering advices, because and this is something that we need to be aware of, especially in Maya culture. Remembering is not living in the past. You know, remembering is something that we do to remember advices, mistakes that have been done, or to give an example, we know that our grandparents have always been wisdom for us, right? And when we remember Hanal Pishan, we're remembering them in this moment. It's because we are remembering not only they being alive, but also their words, you know, words of wisdom. So it's a very beautiful tradition that hopefully it doesn't die, right? That it continues to live in one way or another.
As we're talking about, and I just want to switch gears a little bit because I'm glad you spoke about tradition, the historical context, and so forth. But it would be great for us to talk about the ritual or the tradition in the contents of indigenous resistance and decolonization, because one of the conversations that I don't think we have enough is the similarities of resistance when it comes to creating this altar or celebrating Uhanal Pishan, because we have known that one of the ways that the indigenous Maya resisted colonization was through keeping their spirituality. As they created Christian altars, they used to still worship their gods, and they would still keep their spiritual traditions alive. They would hide their gods under the Christian altar and pray to their gods while giving this illusion that they were praying to the Christian God. So let's talk about Uhanal Pishan as a tradition of resistance with the indigenous Maya.
Well, we need to have in mind that Christianity tried its best to wipe out many traditions, right? And today, Roman Catholicism have become more tolerant. We can say priests don't really bother much about what people that go to church do, right? But people outside their houses, they continue to do this tradition. But then we have more fundamentalist Christians, right? That they would demonize our traditions, calling it they will worship whatever. And many times these comments are comments that are based on zero facts and more ignorance rather than true understanding of the Maya spirituality, right? The simple act of celebrating the tradition is already an act of resistance. It's an act of preserving on who we are and what we are, right? It doesn't matter if you do it in a full Maya way or in a syncretic way. It is still a form of resistance, a form of connecting ourselves with our ancestors, connecting ourselves with our and with the divine, connecting ourselves with our roots also, right? So Hanal Pishan is very important, not only for the dead, like I said, but even for the living. Is part of our identity, is part of who we are. So I think that in the last years, right, I have seen more and more people connecting with this tradition, Hanal Pishan, because when I was growing up, I do remember it was celebrated. But when I reached in my teens, I saw it totally disappeared, right? But it was not that Hanal Pishan disappeared. It's simply it went underground, right? A lot of people felt discriminated in some way. Some people stopped believing, they start criticizing with new religions coming, so they simply became more discreet practicing these traditions, especially from the 2000, the late 90s to 2000. People used to do this tradition, but mostly in their houses. Right now, I can say that from the 2012, 2015, we have seen a resurgence. People that practiced it in their house in a very discreet way. Now they are showing it with pictures, and we can see videos. Now we see people that their families stop practicing. Now they're starting to practice it, and we're seeing like a resurgence of it, right? And I must commend that there are people that still believe in Hanal Pishan, like I believe, But there are also many Mayas that see it in a more symbolic way, right? Not really believing it that death will come and eat the food, but more like a symbolism.
Let's go into what we are trying to save, because you talked about Janal Pixan as a reemergence, as a resurgence. We're looking at ways that we can continue talking about how we can decolonize ourselves. Spirituality is a big factor, given that majority of us are Christians or converted Christians, if you will. And a lot of the data that is out there, a lot of the primary sources that are out there were written by our colonizers. So how do we then start to separate the facts that were written by these persons and what can be written as truth? I know that you are somebody that dives deep into the Chilambalam books, the Popol Vuh, but at the same time, they have been translated and retranslated again. So how do you, as somebody that is trying to keep your roots and teach your children to connect with their indigenous roots, find this information, and how do you know of its value?
Well, something that I have learned from the elders is that the true truth doesn't exist, right? We always say, I've seen pastors that say, this is the truth. No, we don't know. That's what we believe is the truth, right? We live, people who believe that is the truth are people that don't really, they have a high self-esteem, right? Books like the books of Chilambalam and Popol Vuh are very important in understanding the Maya, right? But we need to be conscious that those books have been influenced also by Christianity. To give an example, there's the Chilambalam of Ishil, which has a lot of Christian influence in it, right? Because the books of Chilambalam is not one, it's a whole collection around 10, Chilambalam of Kumayel, Chilambalam of Kisemin, Chilambalam of Chanka, etc., right? Now, decolonizing it can only be done with knowledge, learning what is Christianity and learning the Maya tradition, going with the elders, talking to them, and then investigating of Christianity, right? Because not because I want to know of the Maya culture means that I will not know of the religion that was used to enslave us. Also, no, I need to learn all those things. So we can see similar, because there are many things that we might think that they are Christian, when in reality it has roots in our Maya culture. The simple act of putting food, I know many people would say, oh, that's something that the Roman Catholic do, when in reality it's not the Roman Catholic Church, but it's the people that go to church. So one of the first things we need to do as people is knowledge. Seek knowledge. Knowledge is what would help us see the big difference between the Maya tradition. Now, I must say that through the peninsula and even among the other Mayan groups, right, there is a process of decolonization, right? There are many Mayas that have said, why should we follow this? Right? Personally, I am openly, I am not a Christian, right? I follow my Maya spirituality, and not being a Christian does not mean that I dislike Christianity. Doesn't mean that I don't know of Christianity. On the other hand, I read it, I study it, the same way how I would read Islam, I will read Judaism from the Quran, because it's good to understand. Knowledge is power, and if you guys know of Itzamna, the supreme Mayan god, it represents knowledge. So knowledge would help us decolonize this. And we have seen all through the peninsula that is happening. There's a new generation of Mayas that are thinking the same way. Like, we cannot continue being kneeling down and being subject to a religion that was used, right? We have one of the priests called Luis Nah, right? A Mayan priest, I think he's from Tulum. He, one time in a video, he was sharing the same idea. He's saying, we don't need to hide anymore. We don't need to continue being syncretic anymore. We live in a world more free, that we can do things more freely, right? There's nothing tying us, because if all this, if they saw you practicing the Maya tradition, you would get killed. You will get punished for doing it. So the Mayas hide. So many like them, and even me, we feel that there is no need, right, to continue hiding anymore. We can share our knowledge, we can share it in a very respectful way, right? Because not because I believe in something, you believe in something else, means that we will argue. We cannot argue. We can share knowledge. People that argue are people that they want to put a point that they themselves don't believe it. And they feel that by you believing it, they will feel better. No, in the Maya spirituality, it's not like that. A lot of people that follow the Maya spirituality, they either were raised in it, or they either one day they felt enlightened and they want to do it. Because we don't preach, we don't tell people that our way is the only one. We don't tell people that if they don't follow our spirituality, they will be burned or they will suffer in a place or that they need to accept. There is nothing in that. On the contrary, we are about sharing. If somebody invite me to a church, a person who practices divine spirituality can go to a church. We can go with our Hindu friends. We can share because it is about sharing. The concept of God is something universal. Like an elder once told me, God is God. Only the white man fight on how to worship God, how to worship the Great Spirit. We don't, right? So I I believe that the colonization has to happen, is happening, is a long road to go. But today we plant the seed, right? And water it to make it bloom in a future.
I really like that, Andy, because a lot of the times we really do believe that we have to be able to agree on things in order to get along. One of the ways that I know we're trying our best to make people understand is through these kinds of conversations, these virtual conversations that are taking place. But also we still have a long way to go. A lot of the words are still the concept of saying Dios as a greeting is still something that is out there. We're still trying to get the words, the proper words, and to be as authentic and close to the culture as possible. Why is it, and this is just a question that I wanted to ask you from a while ago, because when I had found you through Tone, I was looking for you on social media, Andy, and I couldn't find Andy. So let's talk about your name and the connection to your name, and why is it that you have it on social media the way you have it. I can't pronounce it, so if you could indulge me and talk about your name and what it symbolizes and what it means for you to have that.
Nohoshmak. Nohoshmak translates to great man, great people, right? And is a word that is used for elders, for people that have a great knowledge, right? I don't, I put that word since people started to call me like that. And I go like, hey, El Mero Nohoshmak or Nohoshmak, people start to tell me in that way, due that I have spent time investigating not only on the Maya spirituality, but also on the Maya history of my village. So when I go, people start to call me Nohoshmak, and I said, people are giving me this respect. So I took the name, right? So people call me Nohoshmak Chuk. Chuk is a Maya surname, which means charcoal or coal, and can also mean to trap something in movement. So here we can see that the Maya have also had the opportunity to preserve their Maya surname, even though we have Maya people that do not have a Maya surname, right? They have a Spanish surname, and this is due to the colonization. I mean, to colonization, right? And there are Mayas that have even changed their surname during the colonial times. Some people from Ek change it to Estrella, from U to Luna, from Sul to Caballero, and stuff like that. So the name Nohoshmak means, depending also on the concept that we use it. Nohoshmak means great man, can be like Mr., but also the word Nohoshmak can be used for an ancestor. Like Nukuch Mak mean, or Nukuch Makop can mean like ancestors, people that the Mayas used to connect or reconnect so they can get certain kind of knowledge, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And before we wrap up this short conversation, I really wanted to get into I know that you've taken it upon yourselves to kind of recreate or create these versions of Maya gods or Maya lores. And talk about why is it that you have done this recreation. I know that you're trying your best to also compile them and to talk more about what they mean symbolically to the Maya, but also the misconceptions that we've gotten wrong over the years as well of some of these characters.
Yeah, when I started to investigate and wanting then to educate others, I noticed that, for example, when we speak of the Tataduende, right, in Maya we call it Nukushtat, I could not find a picture that really reflects the view of the Maya. And then I saw things like Tataduende means demon grandfather, and it was written by foreigners. It was drawn by foreigners that don't really make us understand the Tataduende as a whole. And when you see the Tataduende, it looks more like a European elf, like a European man. And when I spoke with some elders, I remember speaking with this elder who he does offerings, and I was telling, "Have you seen the Tataduende? How it looks?" He tell me, "Well, I have never seen him. He's air. He's a spirit." Those that have seen it say that it looks like an old Maya man with beards, and he has like hat and a tunic. And with their description is when I started to draw, because I felt that through drawings we can express ourselves better, and especially in a way of decolonization, right? For example, I've been one of the entities or deities that I have drawn the most is the Nupushta, the Tataduende, that many times we read other versions that sound really scary, right? But when you reach the Yucatec Maya, you see them as deities that are protectors, that are deities that protect not only the forest, but the animals, the people, and they have a whole role, right? So through a drawing, through illustrations, I have tried my best to not only decolonize um, people, right, but also a way of expression, because how can I identify with a Mayan deity that doesn't look like me, right? Or doesn't look like my people. So here you can see Balam. It has like a traditional Maya hat, and I know people would say, did the Mayas in pre-Hispanic times did hat? Yes, they did hat, right? It's not something just from the Spanish. Here we see that it has a tunic. Yes, the Mayas use tunic. We can see that with the hatch unique that are the Lacandon Maya still, and I still put its earrings made of jade, right? The word Balam again, and I know you will hear the word a lot. Balam, Ik, Kimi. Means father, means Lord, right? In this case, Balam. Here we have the Kakasbal. Just like any culture around the world, we have entities that represent evil, right? And the Kakasbal is one of them. They represent all the evilness in the world. It represents all those bad ideas that we as humans have. So in other words, we are part of Kakasbal. Kakasbal do not have hell, do not have a place that he rules except our minds, our weak minds as humans, right? So these drawings are ways that I can express myself, that we can express culture. Here we have a newer version, a contemporary version of Yumkimi, the Lord of Death. We see him with his traditional milpero clothes and his hat, and with a little such, right, which is the barn owl that is one of the messengers of the underground, and skeleton, right? So the skeletons, we will see skeletons in different cultures. They don't really represent if they are man, woman, white, or Maya. They simply represent our inner self, right? Because at the end of the day, doesn't matter if you are rich or poor, all of us will die. All of us will be part of this cycle of life. And it's something that we have to have in mind, that the Maya don't see life as linear, right? We see it as a circle. So death is part of the cycle of life.
And these are some of the ones that you have shared with me, and I just wanted to share them with our viewers. But I know you do these on a regular basis. In fact, I think that the first time I saw a different version of El Duende was on your page. And then that's when you were talking about it being a spiritual protector, a nature, a guide, if you will, if of someone that respects the forest. So these different elements that we have in the indigenous world are different elements that we use. We just don't know the connection to the indigenous roots. So what are your plans for these drawings, Andy?
Well, I have to be honest that when I draw, I don't simply go and draw. I have to feel inspired, right? Inspired by the moment, inspired by our ancestors. What goal I have for them in a future, I don't really know at the moment, but I have wished to do like a stories of it, do a little book where we can explain a little more of the this deities, which in Maya we call Yumsilobs, right? And try to educate people more, because the only way we can destroy racism, destroy ignorance, destroy many things is not many times with weapons. It's not creating wars, but actually educating people. But we also will face people that don't want to be educated, people that love being blinded, and we cannot deal with those people. We need to move forward to those people that really want to learn things, right? Really want to have this knowledge. So you guys can check my illustrations through internet, right? And anybody is free to use it in schools and whatever, there's no problem with it once they give credit, right? I don't do this for money. I don't do it. I just simply do it because I like drawing. I like my culture, and I hope that when people see it, they would want to know more. More of the Maya culture, more, because Yucatec Maya, we are here, but we are like ghosts in the society, right? Many people, especially from the center of belief, they would call Spanish to everybody in the north, ignoring that there are Maya people here. So it's my little contribution to the Maya culture.
Let's before we close, let's get into what happens after Uhanal Pishan, and any other traditions or rituals that might have that indigenous connection that we might not be aware of.
Yes, after Hanal Pishan, there are some people that November or so they celebrate the Wahikol. The Wahikol is like the first harvest. Um, it was done a lot, but today it is just known in, I think, the village of Pachacan, right? They do altars, they do food, and it is like a whole day in work. After that, they do also chachak, but that's like around Agas. That's known for rain. The only village that does it is here in San Paulo, San Jose. But these rituals, they are hard work. It's not like I will go an hour. No, it starts from 6 in the morning and it ends maybe 5 in the evening. People are working, preparing things, and on top we have a man, which is a spiritual leader, who would pray at a certain time. So it's a lot of work. All that is offered there, it is grown, right? And it is not only going there. Some people make their own pacts, I can say, with the divine. Some people grow chickens and they offer chickens. Some people offer their corn. Some people do their atole, and that's their pack, their contribution to what it will be offered to the Yumsiles, right, and to God, right, the divine. These traditions are still done. Um, I have had the opportunity to take certain pictures of it, not of the people, right, but of the ritual, because it's very secret ritual. If, for example, in my community, they don't allow you to record it, they don't allow you to take pictures, but they have allowed me to take pictures of the altar, of the food, and you will get impressed going there, right? Because when you go, you will think that these things are not done anymore. They continue to be done in a very secretive way. You will go to the bush and will see around 50, 70 males being on the bush, 20 females at another side. And you will see, I have never known this was happening. It is happening, but the Maya Yucatec especially, we have been very discreet. due to years of discrimination. You know, we are one of the first groups, along with the Tainos, that we encounter the Europeans. So we have our 500 years of experience on how to hide our stuff, right? On how to hide our spirituality and stuff like this. And there's a lot of things happening after that. We also have May 3rd, celebrating Dia de la Santa Cruz. And here we can see syncretism again, right? Especially among the Cruz of Maya. The cross is a very important symbol representing shock at that time, because it is believed, I know some people will say, hey, yo celebro Dia de la Santa Cruz, and they believe it rains, right? This is where we can see the Maya connection, right? The Maya connection that is believed that during this day, shock give us, bless us with rain. It's also important to know that there are other traditions that are not linked with certain date, right? Like for example, when we have Hetzmek, which is a tradition that the Maya present their children. Some people call it the Maya baptism, but it's not a baptism, it's a presentation. And there's a whole ritual when a person dies, also, a whole ritual. Because, and this again, where we need to educate ourselves, right? When a person dies, the church normally only do a mass at the church and then one at the tomb, right? That's it. We, the Maya people that practice this secret religion is one that pray 3 days, 7 days, then a week, and then another week, and then we continue praying an year. From where this comes from? This comes from our Maya indigenous side, and many times we ignore it totally, right? So we can see that even though that we practice a Roman Catholicism or Christianity, right? Because not everybody Roman Catholic, some people are Anglican and Presbyterian, they still practice this tradition. We still hold a lot of the Maya spirituality in us. And again, it's simply because we don't know, right? We simply think that's the way how things should be done, and we do it.
Wow, I want to say that I think that we need to have these conversations a little bit more. I know we were specifically talking about Janal Pixan, but I can't help but think of all of these other traditions that we're not privy to. And it doesn't have to be just for the knowledge of indigenous peoples. I think it's very important to share it with the Belizean population in general, so that we can continue to have this understanding of our differences and respect as well in each other's spirituality. So I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I hope that you come back very soon. When is the other celebration? What date is it?
Well, from Janal Pixan, it will be the 1st, the 2nd, then Bish, the 8th.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be posting some pictures, maybe through Tonema Sawalon page. I want to invite everybody to check Tonema Sawalon. It's my organization that have been working in different ways, like to preserve the Maya culture, have been active since 2016, right? And in Janal Pixan will be, I invite everyone, if you're in Corozal, there will be a little presentation, a little celebration of Janal Pixan. But I also want to invite people to celebrate it at home, right? Because the cultural preservation starts with ourselves at home. If I don't do it, who else will do it, right? We do it ourselves, right?
Thank you so much, Andy, and I hope you come back so that we talk more about these other rituals. And of course, I would love to have more of your drawings so that I can share with our viewers as well. Check out Andy Chok's page, and as well as Tone Masewalon's page, to see more insight of different traditions and different life ways of the Yucatec Maya in the north. Thank you all so much for viewing us this afternoon. And I'm not sure when our next live is going to be, but we'll schedule that very